And that's why you should always check out the pawn shops. What's going on, everybody? This is the Coverbandconfidential podcast for cover band musicians and band leaders to learn how to rock more and suck less in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm Adam Johnson.
Back in Greensboro, North Carolina, having been in Atlanta, Georgia, I'm Dan Ray.
Man, that was it was a trip to end all trips, man.
It was awesome. It was awesome. Yeah.
It was a lot of fun going back through. Well, I say that it was a lot of fun. It was not fun because editing live video multicam with audio being a little tricky was less than optimal, but we got it all figured out.
Yeah, you got it done.
And the response we've gotten about that episode has just been absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
It's, we were joking about, how a very small group of people would be excited. And it turns out that there were more than a few.
Yeah.
And that felt good.
It did.
So, how was the drive back? How have things been?
Drive back was fine, pretty uneventful. I don't know why it is, but always going home feels shorter than going there. Coming back feels faster. I don't know why that is.
Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. But yeah, I think in your case, just based on the way you were going and where you went.
Yeah, we were coming down on Friday night, and of course, I'm well aware that Atlanta's Friday night traffic actually starts on Thursday night. So
yep.
Yeah, it's brutal. And so coming into Atlanta on Friday night was tough. Coming out of Atlanta and through North Carolina, or south and into North Carolina on Saturday morning, not so bad. Not so bad. Saturday afternoon, it's pretty okay. We were recording till I think I left your house about noon.
Yeah.
We went and hit a Waffle House, had them scattered, covered, smothered, and chunked, and then headed on home. It was all good.
Nice.
Yep.
Well, let's see. This week we've got two shows coming up. We've got a Thursday night and a Friday night show. Been prepping for that. That's also a situation where we've got two different subs on bass, but one of them was our old first call, and the other one is a sub that's worked with us, a dozen times at this point. So no worries there. It'll be smooth sailing. We got another date with the keyboard player on. She'll be playing with us on Friday. Her name is MK, by the way. MK Ultra is what I want to call her. But
yeah. So there's a whole project about her.
Yes. It's, dude, last podcast on the left did a whole series about MK Ultra.
Sure.
It was
bonkers.
I think 12 hours plus.
Okay.
It was a lot.
Yeah.
But you devoured a podcast I had recommended on the way back. Right?
Oh yeah. Noble.
Yes.
Oh, it's intense. It's a lot. And I did find myself having to open the window and breathe some fresh air at one moment because the descriptions were vivid. It's a podcast that doesn't pull any punches about the realities of post-mortem decomposition of people.
Yes.
And it was a lot. And I still have not caught the last episode, which promises to be like the whole story final answer.
I've listened to it. I'm not sure it wraps up in the bow that you're hoping for.
Yeah, I felt that way at the end of season 1 of Serial too. I'm not going to be too surprised about that. But the best part of it is the woman. There's a story arc of a character in it, a person. It's a true story.
Yeah, this is not
who starts out real mad about what's happened and then sort of has an epiphany and becomes a lovely human. I mean, she's lovely from the beginning. We love her from the beginning, and we're on her side about how mad she is, and then she comes around. That arc is beautiful.
Yeah.
That's a really well told piece of the story, and
it took a lot of self-reflection and bravery on her part to do what she did.
Anyway, strong recommend. Noble, if you have a strong stomach.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a Sebtober, freak like I am, it is a good one for spoopy season.
For sure.
Trying to warm up to it. The other one that I like around this time of year is Spooked, which is the Snap Judgment deal. They have their own line of like scary stories that they ramp up during the month of October. So that's another good one.
Cool.
That I enjoy. Right now, Last Podcast is doing the horrors of SeaWorld, and I am politely declining to consume that. There's just certain things. I like most of the stuff on most of the shows, but like I don't like aliens, and I don't like cruelty to animals. Yeah, those are my soft spots.
I'm with you.
In other news, I bought a bass today.
You did?
I went to a pawn shop, just like my regular haunt. They know me there at this point, which is good and bad because when you show up and they know who you are, they're like, "Hey, check this out." They had two Newberg Steinbergers. So with the graphite necks, the GR series, the ones that have like the bodies, They had this one that was like a quilted blue maple that was really pretty, but it was also $3,000. And they had like 5 other headless guitars. It was wild. Like somebody parted ways with a bunch of stuff. But as I was walking around, first off, they were like stacked to the rafters with stuff. So they were blowing some things out pretty cheap. And I round the corner and I see this Ibanez Talman bass, which is that, really cool offset design that they released back in the 90s. It's the TMB 100, which I think is kind of their base model. Retails for $250, I think. And I got it for $69. And it's in perfect working order. I, tightened the knobs up and adjusted the bridge a little bit, but it's rad and it looks cool. And I mean, for $69, how could you beat it?
How do you beat it? You don't.
I tried out a bunch of stuff. I put on an expensive watch. I walked out with a $60 guitar. That's just how trips to the pawn shop are going to go.
For sure.
So let's move into reviews. Now, this is something I love this because in doing this show and being a part of different services in the creator world, I found out about a new feature that I don't know if it existed before this, but I just found out about it because we got an email and said a creator on Patreon has recommended you on the platform.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, okay. And so I got an email from this particular account is called Exploring Octave Mandolin, and they are creating stuff for mandolin players. And it says, Adam and Dan are great storytellers and musicians. I don't think either of them play a lot of mandolin. Fair.
Yeah.
I do know how to, I can serviceably play a mandolin if, push comes to shove. I learned the Battle of Evermore once.
Sure.
Like back in high school.
Sure.
But we share a mutual passion for cover songs, live performance, pro audio gear, and driving the business behind your band. So big thanks to Exploring Octave Mandolin on Patreon.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Recommending us.
I've done the parts to Losing My Religion on mandolin, but that's
another good one.
Very simple. Yeah.
So cool. if you want to know more about mandolin and learn the songs that we learned and then some, you should go check out that account.
Yeah.
It's fun to have other creators hop on and say nice things about what we do. So we really appreciate that.
Yeah. Awesome.
And speaking of other creators, I was kind of teasing or joking about this YouTube NAMM house thing.
Right.
And it is happening.
Wow.
I got added to a group chat about it, and we're going to hop on, I think, a Zoom call in the next week or so to, hammer out the specifics. And, I'll put a down payment on it so that we can lock it in. But yeah, it's really cool. Creators from all over. The guys from Working Class Music, 60 Cycle Hum, Pedal Playhouse, Guitar Dads, which I'm not super familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
I'm stoked because this is all stuff that we get an opportunity to cross-pollinate with other creators and, get new ideas and hopefully do some collaboration and things like that. So if you want to keep up with that, make sure that you're following all of our channels and stuff. And it should be a lot of really fun stuff down the pike. Now, I didn't tell you about this. I'm not going to let the whole thing go, but I have started the process of doing a collaboration with a couple of other creators in the kind of music that, members only plays, hoping to drop a video around Halloween time, ramping up for that. It's an 80s thing and it's a Halloween thing, so you guys could just use your imagination. I can assure you what it isn't, and that is Dead Man's Party by Oingo Boingo.
I was going to ask.
It is not. I'll tell you what it is in the post show.
Okay.
So if you want to know more about that, you can join the Patreon and hear about that ahead of time. But if it all comes together, it's going to be pretty wild.
Awesome.
And getting a chance to work with creators that I haven't worked with before, but have kind of cursory connection to. And yeah, could be fun.
That's awesome.
So we got a lot of stuff to talk about, but nothing in particular. This is one of those things where there's a little topic here, a little topic there. We'll kind of cover some stuff. Yeah. The meatballs episode, which, I know you guys love that term almost as much as I do.
As the coiner of that term, I'm glad that you enjoy it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Listen, let me
they can't all be winners.
They can't, but some are. And this one has a shot. Let me start by giving a follow-up on one of the main topics from last week, which was, holy cow, does Dan have a lot of work ahead of him? It remains true. But one of the things that happened was we had a rehearsal, finally got the band together. The summer's been tough, travel and summer stuff and kids and whatever. But we're clear for the next several weekends to get together and maybe throw in some weeknights too. We sat down, just drum, bass, and me, and we played along to the tracks that I had set up. And darn if some stuff didn't work. And then we played through the songs that don't need tracks, that are going to be guitar oriented things. Run to You.
Yep. Bryan Adams.
Some other things that don't need tracks. And by God, our first time through them, I would not have been ashamed to be on a stage.
Nice.
Really helps when you got players that know what they're doing and know the music in their heart because they've been there. They were there when it debuted on the radio. It
Right.
makes a huge difference. Now, I left your house with a login to your band helper. Very graciously offered me to download and steal all of your tracks, which I did download and steal many of them and load them into my band helper, only to discover that you, my friend, play your show a half step down. You've tuned a half step down for your whole show. And it's not a terrible option. It makes some things easier to sing, but I've already got all these tracks in standard tuning. So I got to either standardize on your way or my way, and I am picking my way. So appreciate the generous offer of your tracks, and they were inspiring in a way that I'll get into. But we played along to the ones that I had built, and I am taking Hungry Like a Wolf because moving it down a half step doesn't change how you voice it on the guitar. It's all bar chords anyway. So, and then I came home from rehearsal on Sunday, and I sat down and with a clear picture of what tracks I needed to update and what I needed to fix and do, and I have now done. Let me just count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 tracks. And they are Power of Love, Things Can Only Get Better, Every Little Thing You Do Is Magic, Hold Me Now, Don't You Forget About Me, Once in a Lifetime, Sledgehammer, Africa, Everybody Wants to Rule the World, Talking in Your Sleep, and Just What I Needed. And here's what inspired me about your tracks was the amount of count in that you do.
Yep.
Right? You count into the song starting, you do an 8 count of click, and you do a count in to the downbeat of the song.
Yep.
And then in some of yours, you do you count into the end of the song.
Mm-hmm.
I went ahead and did, we played Africa without a track, just to ear for a long time, and counting out that time between the da 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 1, 2, 3, 4 da da. Sometimes it's been in our bones and sometimes not. Sometimes we jump the gun on that and whatever. So I went ahead and laid in a 1, 2, 3, 4 on all of the times that I know we have had trouble being totally in sync. In Just What I Needed, there are a couple of places where there's a 2-bar sort of hang between the double chorus at the end of the song and headed into the guitar solo. There's a place where it ends and it hangs. And I, inspired by your tracks, put in a 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4 to count us in on what's going to happen. So that was, I think, a big upgrade to how I approach tracks. Like I can really flesh out the cueing to make it more reliable. Just a no-brainer that we're going to nail the timing and be in sync and all of that.
Right.
So it's really useful to hear your tracks and hear your thinking as you built them. Really directed me in a good way. Now I'm using a AI voice generator thing called Revoicer. There are a lot out there. That was just the one I picked. I don't recommend it above any other. It's just the one that I landed on. And so it's a computer voice that, 1, 2, 3, 4, like it doesn't quite sound like a human saying those, but it's all right. The count is fine. It's going to get the job done. And if people think it's funny, that's a bonus.
I set up an automator script in Mac OS that converts clipboard to audio. And I just use I guess Alex is the name of their automated voice. There's still not a way to use Siri's voice to do it. I don't know why. I figured that would be kind of, I don't know. It doesn't really matter. But that's what we ended up with. And I also, another thing that you didn't bring up that we do is I put Easter eggs in a lot of the cues.
Yes.
Songs very rarely are the actual song titles. They're, something that is funny.
The Queen song Underpants Pressure.
Underwear Pressure.
Underwear Pressure, yeah.
And then I don't know if I played this one for you. Wake Me Up Before You Go Go. I tried to do the John Bovey where I did the opposite of every word. So instead of it being wake me up before you go, it's shake you down after I come. Just let that sit for a second.
Yeah, I don't like it.
Now, one thing another thing about Band Helper that I'm not sure if you know, that you can transpose audio in Band Helper. So you could take one of my tracks and you could bump it up
I went to
a
find
half
that, and
step.
I couldn't find a place to do that.
Arlo, tell us, help. I know you can do it because I've done it before.
I found a place. I found a global place you could do that across all of its playback. I didn't find a place to do that per song.
I think you can do it. That's song specific.
Hmm.
But yeah, just something to keep in mind.
Something to keep in mind. I was glad to have the opportunity to, because once I realized I could build myself more queuing structure, there were places that I wanted to target that were specific to places I know we've struggled. So I was glad for the opportunity to do that, and I got a really good workflow. I'm using an app called Jam Zone, which
Mm-hmm.
I believe is the karaoke version stems in a new package. And I think that mostly because the vocal is strongly accented in European uh, accents.
Yes. Yes.
But it's a phone and tablet app. It's on iOS, but it also runs on the desktop, but badly. So don't do that. I'm using it on my tablet, on my iOS, on my iPad, and when I get a recording that I like, I am air zapping, not air zap. What is it? It's built into Finder.
Airplay.
Not AirPlay. Share
Uh,
Sharecast. Throw file.
airdrop.
AirDrop. Thank you. Oh my god, that's what I'm doing from my.
This is going great so
Yeah,
far.
it's really good from my iPad to my laptop, and then so I'm putting up into Band Helper the full band version of the song out of Jam Zone and the edit that I've made in Logic, and so yeah, workflow's going pretty good. I mean, like I say, since I got back from rehearsal yesterday afternoon, I've made, what is that, 11 tracks. So pretty efficient.
It's pretty quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, all good. Still no progress on marketing or lighting or any of those things, but the main one,
Mm-hmm.
repertoire, I'm starting to feel pretty solid about.
And you had mentioned something about the Steinberger. You had finally played it in rehearsal.
Finally plugged it in. It's been sitting here unplugged since I
Yeah.
received it, and yeah, it's fine. It sounds good. It's not. Its output is not as hot as the Reverend, but it's fine. I may make a preset for it. Just bump the input gain just a hair, just so that the levels all match. But anyone who's ever held one of those guitars, or I mean, it's the slim little headless. When you think of an '80s guitar, that's the coolest possible '80s guitar. It's this one.
Yeah.
But its scale from nut to bridge is
Mm-hmm.
smaller than most guitars I played with, and
Yeah.
how it hangs on you, it's offset to your left, and so the bridge of the guitar is closer to your belly button than other guitars I play, and so that means
Yep.
that the middle of the fretboard, the 12th fret, is further left of my body than I'm used to, and so it just all feels weird. All the positions feel weird. You
Yeah.
go to catch A major, 5th fret, A major, and but wait, that's not. I'm in the 7th fret.
Yeah,
Whoa, whoops.
you gotta pay attention.
Yeah,
It's not a guitar that you can play after too many beers.
right.
There's
Yeah,
all the stuff that you rely on is not there. So yeah, you
right.
got to be careful about
Right,
that.
right. Now, fortunately, the with tracks and being '80s, the guitar input into the whole show is way less than when I'm a power trio.
Mm-hmm.
So I can I'm adding color to the body of the song is really coming out of the track. So the demand for guitar is a lot less. And of course, there are some songs I'm doing. I mean, Things Can Only Get Better has no guitar in it.
Yep.
Right. There are a couple of songs that are like that for me. I will I'll be able to shift in Africa. I'll be able to shift from holding down the main harmony to playing that da, 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 da. That's really the
Yep.
only guitar in that whole tune. And I've never played it because I've always been sort of the rhythm harmony holder downer in that song. So that'll be fun.
Now, I always play it, but I play it as a part of that E chord because it kind of starts on the, where you're playing the, I guess it's what is that, an A flat on the
Yep.
D string.
Yep.
Do do do. So I play the E, and then kind of like just cheat my fingers up to do that melody line.
Yeah,
in the middle of it.
I'll have to figure out how to voice it. I've never even experimented with that.
I'll show you when we get off.
Yeah, it's cool. It's gonna be fun. I think I walked out of rehearsal feeling like things were not as far away from ready as I thought.
I think tracks help a lot with that because you can run it like once or twice and be like, well, I'll be dipped.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot less guesswork and there's a lot less, I'm going to say, core mechanics that need to happen because you already know what the tempo is. You know when to start, you know when to finish.
Yep.
You know, as long as you've got cues and you are used to functioning in that kind of setup, I love it because you can onboard material way quicker.
Yeah. And
just tell people, hey, here's what you play, and then you bring it in once, and then usually you're good to go.
For sure. And I got some feedback from my guys about what works on the tracks. I had built some tracks a long time back that had sort of a hi-hat as the click, and my drummer was losing that in the sound of his equipment, right? He couldn't hear it over his own hi-hat. But some more recent ones I built had sort of an 808 tom dink, 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 dink that really cut a whole lot better in his in-ear mix. And so a couple of those that I have, in addition to the ones I just listed, I've gone back and redone those with a different kind of click and added some more queuing because I now am in the abundant queuing mode. So yeah, I feel like we're headed in a good way. I think our next rehearsal is going to be sort of power through the set and just see where we get hung up. So yes, by much improved situation over last week.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
It's good to hear things that are moving in the right direction. So let's see. There's been a lot of like touring news going on the past couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And
stage combat.
This is one of those rare occasions where, the subject of our conversation 2 pods ago, Oasis, those guys are looking quite,
they seem stable,
very mindful, very demure, in comparison.
Right.
The one that really caught me off guard was REO Speedwagon announcing that they're ending their touring run.
Yeah.
The interesting thing is that my buddies in Yacht Rock Review have been on tour with REO Speedwagon all summer. They literally just finished a 10-week run with them and Train, and they were having some issues towards the end of the tour. Now, Bruce was not a part of this run, and there have been a lot of folks that were kind of up in arms about that. He had a health issue, and they were like, we're going to give him time to rest and recover, and then he'll be back. And then Kevin Cronin got ill on the last week, and they dropped off a couple of shows. Like, they just straight up didn't play. And so they posted something on their socials today, basically saying like Bruce and Kevin are not in agreement with things, and so as of, I think they said January 2025, like they're packing it in, which is I mean, it's not surprising. It's going to happen to all of these bands eventually.
Sure. I mean, unless they go zombie, that's the point. Like, we actually don't need any living members or agreeing members, right? Their estates can agree to it. But in this case, looks like not. Looks like REO Speedwagon's done.
And more power to them. I think there's something to be said about a group that like says, "Hey, we are not going to tarnish our legacy. We are able to do what we're doing, and we're going to go ahead and just call it before we do anything that could negatively impact the the story that we're trying to tell."
Yeah.
And it's got to be hard. I mean, it clearly is hard because every time these bands do their quote unquote farewell tour and are back on the road 2 years later, clearly there was just one reason or another. Typically, though, that it's got a lot to do with divorces. It seems Tom DeLonge was not interested in getting back with Blink-182 until he got divorced. And then all of a sudden he was ready to go back on the road and make oodles and oodles of money. And I'm pretty sure one of the Gallagher brothers also is freshly sprung from a divorce hearing. So
is it a Yoko situation, or is it a what do I do with myself now situation?
It's not even that. It's I now have half of what I normally get, so I need more.
Yeah, I have alimony to cover, so we need to go on the road. I get it.
Yep.
I get it.
Yep. That seems to be a high motivator of a lot of these guys. So yeah, I mean, if maybe they take a year off and Bruce gets better and Kevin gets better and they're able to, reconcile the things, and maybe maybe they take next summer off and they'll be back on the summer after that. Who knows?
Well,
But
I appreciate the integrity of saying we're done. I mean, I think that's
yeah.
you can see how hard that is for a lot of acts.
So, best of luck to those guys. Not that they need our well wishes and whatnot, but it's time to roll up to the shore and throw away the oars forever.
Well done.
Now, the next one I'm really excited to talk about, and that is the absolute nightmare that was, past tense as of today, the Jane's Addiction reunion tour.
Yeah.
So Jane's Addiction has been notorious as far as just chaos on the road, very mercurial live performances when they're on
substance abuse like crazy.
Oh yeah, everybody in that group has been a junkie at one point or another. But they are very much an all or nothing situation. You're either about to see the greatest show you've ever seen, or you're about to see an absolute dumpster fire.
Right.
And this one's no exception. They had not been touring, and I think honestly, the holdout was Dave Navarro, because he got like long COVID and was like unable to perform for a while. Like he was fully off the road, I think, for over a year.
Jeez.
So they kicked off this tour, and the wheels started to come off pretty early on. I think the night that things went super sideways, he drank 3 bottles of wine on stage in full view of the audience.
From the bottle, yeah.
Yes, and that's, while he was performing.
Right.
So there's no telling what was going on before that. So the big thing that made its way on social media was not only was Perry Farrell kind of wandering around, kind of lost, missing cues, sounding nowhere close to what is supposed to be. But it all came to a head when he walked over to Dave Navarro and literally, threw a punch at him. Yeah. At which point all of the band basically stopped and, piled on to Perry and
and it seemed
quietly,
like, frankly, it seemed
peacefully
like
escorted off stage.
It seemed like they had a hard time getting him off stage. It seemed like that was some challenge.
There were a couple extra shots that were put in to get him to comply.
Yeah.
I will say this, Dave Navarro was not one of those. The look on his face made it pretty clear that like something was wrong. They all knew it.
Yeah.
And there was no malice behind his eyes. He looked genuinely concerned.
Yeah.
Which is how you kind of know, like, okay, something's up and they know more about this than they're letting on. But the thing that really got me all bent out of shape was the way that they were trying to do damage control about it. Mm-hmm. So this was a show in Boston. Perry hits Dave. The band walks off stage. The show is done. And then Perry's wife was trying to say that Perry was mad because the band was playing too loud and he couldn't hear.
His mix was bad. So he's going to beat up the guitar player?
Yeah, listen, here's why that theory is bullshit. Because Dave Navarro is not in charge of Perry Farrell's monitor mix. Right. There's an entire staff of people who are in charge of that. And stage volume or not, if he was actually upset about the way that his monitor sounds, he had a person to yell at. And it wasn't Dave Navarro.
Yeah.
I mean, if you go on to YouTube, you can find dozens and dozens of rock stars yelling at monitor engineers about not being able to hear things.
Yeah.
You don't punch your guitar player.
That's the thing you don't do.
Right.
Yeah.
So as soon as they said that, I was like, okay, so none of this is real. And honestly, it made me realize, oh, this is actually much worse than we thought it was.
Yeah, we're covering for something now. This is...
Yes.
Yeah.
So there was rumors today that Dave Navarro had quit Jane's Addiction, but soon after that, both camps kind of released separate statements about things from their perspective. So the guys in Jane's that are not Perry Farrell, so Dave, Stephen Perkins, Eric Avery, were like, hey, given the situation, and they call it straight out that it was like the mental health issues of Perry Farrell, we have opted to cancel the rest of our tour. And soon after that, there was a statement that was released by Perry that was like, I take responsibility for the way things went. I am sorry. And that pretty much left it at that. But if you were hoping to see Jane's Addiction this year, it's not happening.
No.
Will they ever end up on stage again? Who knows? They're one of those bands. Can you think of another band that big that has broken up that often?
Spinal Tap, but apart from
Did they ever break up? There's just lots of lineup changes, new drummers.
I don't know.
They keep exploding.
Who knows? But it feels like that. It feels like it's almost like a mockumentary story. Like it's.
Well, yeah, and it's for all the same reasons. It's
Right.
it's egos and drugs and all of the things that make rock and roll rock and roll.
Yep.
But yeah, it's a lot, and you don't want to see artists that had struggled with their demons and come out on the other side, fall back into those bad habits. It's
well, I mean, aren't other people in the band? It's not a band I follow closely, but I have heard that other folks in that band are years into sobriety and
oh yeah,
like totally cleaned up, and so it's a shame to have that happen kind of right in front of them. Although who's gonna get it better than somebody who's deep in recovery?
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, the other thing to consider is like Perry Farrell's 65.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not like, these are young kids. These are guys who have been in this a long time and should not be in that situation at that age.
Right.
So, I hope Perry gets the help that he needs and that they get a chance to work together again, because I love Jane's Addiction, but I don't think I'm going to get a chance to see him again.
Probably not.
We just have to be okay with it, because that's just the way it goes.
It's rock and roll.
It is. Any other stuff we wanted to get into? I feel like we covered all the big tentpole conversations.
I don't think I have anything else.
Well, guys, gals, thanks so much for tuning in. We, we're on the upswing. We were charting in Germany, Ireland, and Norway this past week.
Sweet.
So, European tour is right around the corner.
Sure.
Where there's demand, we will be there. If you want us to play or come to your town, let us know. Coverbandconfidential@gmail.com. Leave it in the comments of the YouTube video or what have you. But yeah, that's pretty much all we've got. I got to figure out how to load up our gear by myself, because Amber is currently out of town and I am solo parenting and also solo loading, apparently.
Nice.
So I've got my work cut out for me, but that's the next big hurdle to get over as far as my world goes. If you like sports show, you can do lots of stuff, and we'll just let whatever's about to happen. So we'll go ahead and leave it at that. In Atlanta, Georgia, I'm Adam Johnson.
In Greensboro, North Carolina, I'm Dan Ray.
You've been listening to the Coverbandconfidential podcast for the week of September 20th, 2024.